Director for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign and former White House Director of Communications under President Obama, and Rick Wilson, Republican strategist and author of Everything Trump Touches Dies. Rick, you tweeted out earlier that you're going to be on the show with me, and we're going to be talking about summer gardening tips and the best deals on Amazon Prime, and, by the way, filthy traders who sell out their country. This was a remarkable moment today for people who really weren't willing to accept the fact that Donald Trump was in Vladimir Putin's pocket. What happens next?
Well, look, I think what happens next, unfortunately, in Washington is Republicans will do their furrowed brows and deep concern act for 24 hours. Then they'll get right back on the Trump-Putin effort to delegitimize the investigation into Russian hacking into our country and Russians' attempt to manipulate our elections. They'll be right back on the fire Mueller train in 48 hours or less. I do think, though, that a lot of people today saw the real Donald Trump. They saw the Donald Trump who comes out acting like he's the swaggering alpha male, and he sat there on the stage like a whipped dog. I mean, he wanted Vladimir Putin's approval. Mm-hmm. He didn't care about anything else. He wanted Vladimir Putin to pat him on the head and to tell him he's a good boy, and nothing else mattered. He was defending himself, you know, with these wild haymaker punches of trying to bring Hillary Clinton back into the conversation. But it was very clear today who the boss was in that room and who wears the dog collar, and it's Donald Trump.
Well, Jennifer, if there are residual payments for each time the Hillary Clinton campaign is mentioned out of context by the President of the United States, you'd be rich. I mean, it is kind of fascinating that he was asked a very direct question about Russian interference in the election, and he answered with Hillary Clinton and some Pakistani guy and a server.
Yeah, completely incomprehensible answer that was based off of, you know, concocted propaganda that I imagine was fed to him by the Russians. It was in some ways not a surprising thing to see the way today played out, but it was stunning. And it was stunning to see, among other things, the President of the United States and the President of Russia appear to swap, debunked propaganda stories about Hillary Clinton 18 months into the Trump presidency.
But you're a communications expert, right? There were 99 other ways to skin that cat. When President Trump was asked 3 or 4 direct questions from reporters. Do you believe your intelligence officials? Do you have anything you could possibly say to Russia? Is there anything you would say to Vladimir Putin? I mean, right. Explain to me the thinking here. You've worked with presidents and presidential candidates. I think as is often the case with Trump, we look for a more complicated answer than the one that is right in front of us, which is he does Putin's bidding because he is indebted to him in many ways. And that was the most logical explanation for his behavior during the campaign, and its most logical explanation for today. I imagine that, you know, you see a lot of American former officials and you know, thankfully members of Congress as well come out today to put in very stark terms just how bought in to Donald Trump Russia appears to be, and vice versa. But we also saw this during the campaign. You know, Mike Morrell, who had been the acting director of the CIA, wrote an op-ed in August of 2016 saying, I have concluded as a 30-year intel official that Donald Trump has become an unwitting agent of the Russian Federation. And now we see on the world stage what that looks like. You know, the indictment told us that Russia spent $90,000 in Bitcoin currency to conduct the hack. And $90,000 bought them the neutering of the United States on the world stage. That was a good deal.
It's remarkable to see.
So Rick, the fact is, we talked about earlier in the show, we talked about Rand Paul, who has bought into the idea that, you know what, communications with Russia is better, good relations are more important than not, and this has all become a feeding frenzy. At some point, self-respecting Americans have got to say, whatever you think the reason is, it's just unpatriotic.
It's only a feeding frenzy today because Donald Trump dumped a dump truck full of chum into the water. Donald Trump brought this on himself. He sided with Vladimir Putin during the course of this press conference, and God knows what happened during the meeting, probably a foot massage. And he did something today that brought this feeding frenzy on. And almost every Republican in D.C. Who in elected office has come out and said, you know, please, Donald, stop talking. You're hurting the team.
We're gonna leave it there, Rick. I'm sorry we didn't get to talk about Amazon.